Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The reason we are recording this episode of Karta Clatter in a sort of protected area under a glazed roof is obvious, because North India, Delhi, we are all benefiting, or this maybe you can call it a collateral benefit from cyclone Taukte, just as people, Indians on the west coast, Mumbai, Goa, etc., Gujarat, actually suffer from it. So that's pushing the weather system towards the north, and that's why we are getting these showers in the peak of summer. So that's the reason I say this is a collateral benefit. That's the reason we are also sitting sort of protected right now. Now, what we are talking about today is nothing to do with weather or a storm of this kind. It is also a storm, it's also a murky weather system developing, but it's got to do everything with politics and nothing with meteorology. And politics is something that we return to after several days of either coronavirus or Palestine, Hamas, issues over the origin of the virus in the lab in Wuhan. So after all that, after several days, if we come back to national politics, at a time when no elections are going on, state elections have just ended, it's because a new controversy has broken out between the Congress and the BJP. What's happened is a document has emerged which the BJP says is a toolkit that the Congress has devised to bring a bad name to the BJP, its government, but more centrally to Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, who is the sort of main batsman of the BJP. So the BJP thinks, and quite rightly, that if this wicket is down, then their team collapses, and that's what the Congress thinks also, or would think also, because that is political logic. Anybody can say that, because this BJP government is very much centered on one person. So BJP says that this is a toolkit that they have discovered or that has surfaced, whereby Congress has put out an agenda to destroy Mr. Modi by using all kinds of methods and such weapons of mass destruction. Now, I'm being sarcastic. These days, when you're being sarcastic, when you're using irony, or when you're trying to be witty or subtle or clever or smart, you risk being too clever by half. So you need to, when you even use a joke these days, in these very sensitive times, you have to put a sign of exclamation or say tickle tickle, please laugh, it's a joke. So I'm using it sarcastically. So once again, after putting in all these long qualifications and taking anticipatory bail against any misrepresentation of what I might have said by way of a joke or half a joke, what I mean by weapons of mass destruction is not missiles or nuclear bombs or biological warfare or chemical warfare, nothing of the sort. Weapons of mass destruction in this case are social media influencers, because that is what this BJP insinuation is, that this Congress toolkit was aiming to do, to use social media and social media influencers to destroy Narendra Modi and his government's image. Now think about it. Even if they were doing it, why should this be illegitimate? Because this is politics. In politics, what would you expect the opposition to do if not try and destroy the image of the ruling party and its preeminent leader? Similarly, even for the ruling party in politics, politics is not a nice game. Politics is not a game of 19th century cricket. Politics is a game that's played in a take no prisoners manner today, because politics rewards are great and it's winner takes all. So BJP also leaves nothing to chance. They attack Rahul Gandhi. The whole campaign against Rahul Gandhi is Rahul the Pappu. The Pappufication of Rahul Gandhi goes on, and Sonia Gandhi being of Italian origin, frequent use of her maiden name to suggest that she is not an Indian, she is a foreigner. It's a bit strange. At the same time, the same people will celebrate, say, a Kamala Harris or a Rishi Sunak, but let's leave that aside. So this is a game which is no holds barred, and both sides are playing it. So Congress wanting to use social media, etc., social media influencers, It is not an outrage, it doesn't sound unlikely. It is just that the Congress says that this is a forgery, that the BJP has actually forged AICC Research Department's letterhead, and on that the BJP has printed this. So today Sambit Patra, who is a prime-time superstar from the BJP, he's been talking and he's been saying it's very clear that this is a Congress plan, quote unquote, on how to destroy Narendra Modi's image and erode his popularity. Now, even if they are saying it, what else do you expect the Congress to do? Do you expect the Congress to produce a toolkit or produce any agenda or any framework of action or work to actually enhance Narendra Modi's image and to strengthen his popularity? So this sounds logical, and this is plausible. It is possible that this was produced in Congress Party's research department. Congress Party's research department under Professor Rajiv Gowda engages a lot of young scholars, a lot of them from liberal universities overseas, some from India, who come in on secondment or on sabbaticals and work there to produce many research documents. So it could be a document from there. It could be, now I am decluttering but also guessing a little bit, could be that when Congress Party came up and denied it completely and said we are going to the police, they might not have run a check. In fact, it's a question, did they run a proper check at their own end, that as if such a document existed? Because it now does sound like that even they are accepting that some document existed, although they say that document only talked about the demerits of the Central Vista project and how to attack the government by using the Central Vista project as an insensitive idea, as a vanity project, as something which is terrible, a waste of money, when the country needs every available rupee to help those who are distressed by the second wave of the COVID crisis. So, did BJP or the BJP Dirty Tricks Department pick up that document and then extrapolate on this and insert stuff on it? We don't know. For that you need forensic experts, and you know how our system works. Even if it goes to the police, it goes to forensic experts, nothing will come up. If anything comes up, at least until the BJP government is there, it will give the BJP a clean chit, and if the government changes tomorrow, they will hold the BJP guilty. Today they may hold Congress guilty. Unfortunately, no agencies, and least of all police and Delhi police, have any such credibility. So this is not something that will be settled in the court of law or that will be settled in a police station. This is a political argument that will go on. So let us look at what this toolkit says. Among the most offensive things from the BJP's point of view in this toolkit is instructions on how to attack its key leaders. So say, for example, call this new viral variant Indian strain or Modi strain. If you call it Indian strain, it's quote unquote anti-national because you're giving your country a bad name. Doesn't matter that even our own ministers have been calling B117 the British strain, and the British have no problem calling it the UK strain or the Kent strain. That besides, so that is one, Modi strain, Indian strain, and then run hashtags. Hashtags are again weapons of mass destruction, quote unquote joke these days. Quarantined S. Jaishankar, he is the External Affairs Minister, because there was that social media tattle about his having been quarantined in London when he had gone for this G7 foreign ministers meeting. Or to say that missing Amit Shah, hashtag missing Amit Shah, hashtag sideline Rajnath Singh, hashtag insensitive Nirmala Sitharaman. Now, if all this was being done, again it's something that you would expect an opposition to do. In fact, as hashtags go, these are quite decent, and these are quite decent and quite printable. Almost everybody in public life or public debate gets hashtag much nastier than this. I'm a nobody, I'm just a journalist, maybe a senior one, but I have hashtags directed at me using my name that are enormously nastier than this, and I don't even have the skin. I should be expected to be having a skin as thick as that of the politicians, because my stakes are also not that high. So these hashtags Modi's train, hashtag Modi's train, hashtag quarantine S. Shankar, hashtag missing Amit Shah, hashtag sideline Rajnath Singh, hashtag insensitive Nirmala Sitharaman. It's okay. It's politics. What else do you expect? You don't expect Congress party to say genius S. Shankar or New Sardar Patel, Amit Shah. They are not going to use hashtags like that. So that is politics. So I'm sharing the entire alleged toolkit with you with the description, so you can read that. There is no point me repeating it. I will only mention some highlights that I have picked up, plus an interesting insight that if you see this page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then point 1 is on page 1 and then page 2 has point 5 and it is I think on page 3 or 4 that point 2, 3, 4 come in. Now it is possible that somebody typing it or doing it in the Congress party's research section got it wrong, but it's also possible somebody messed it up while extrapolating or interpolating, whatever you choose to call it, stuff into it. So we don't know, and we must not make a presumption that those who might be manipulating it cannot be as unsmart. I am not using a more rude adjective. Cannot be as unsmart or cannot be as clumsy as those who might be writing the original, because nobody is a genius in this case. Anyway, so if you look at these, if I look at point 2, so it says cornering Narendra Modi and BJP, legitimate idea in politics, and it says first of all promote the idea that they were using Kumbh Mela to project political power, and then say be careful because they will counter it by saying but what about Eid? So say Eid is just a festival where friends get together and party and greet each other, whereas Kumbh Mela was your show of Hindutva power. So make that distinction. Would the Congress put this in writing? If they put this in writing, then you make your own choice or who is clumsier of the two. Because if anybody writes that, puts that on a piece of paper as a political party, it doesn't really show that you are professional politicians. It just means that you are newbies to politics and you have no idea, you don't take politics seriously or understand politics, the seriousness of politics. And it also says that avoid any comparison, counter any comparison of Eid with Kumbh, never say anything adverse on Eid. Would the Congress put this in writing? I don't know. If it was a serious political party, unlikely it would, but Congress party has done a lot lately that sort of questions the idea that it's a serious political party. So again, we don't know. Then it says that on social media, continue on about Eid being friendly gatherings and Kumbh being a show of political power. Then it says amplify the work of your own frontal organizations like Youth Congress. That's a pretty good idea for the party to do it. What else? Who else's organizations will the party amplify? They will not amplify the work of Bharatiya Jan Yuva Morcha. That's for the BJP to do, or Democratic Youth Foundation of India. That is for CPM to do. So Congress will promote its own people. That is not such a big deal for me. And then it says in point 6 that destroy Modi's image, erode his popularity, and also reach out to friendly intellectuals and influencers, and so get them all together to give him a bad name. Now, once again, he's Prime Minister, you respect him as Prime Minister, but he's in politics. So I would say that even if the Congress party wrote this, it is legitimate for the Congress party to have written this. And then it says something which I find very intriguing, and I don't know even if the Congress party with its quote unquote intellect could have written this, or maybe the other side with its intellect could have interpolated this. It says also reach out to friendly weekly, remember weekly, friendly weekly magazines for cover stories that show the government missing. Now you know that Outlook magazine had that controversial cover just a week back which said missing government, etc., etc., etc. It so happens at the same time India Today also had a cover saying failed state. So to suggest that Congress party reached out to both these magazines and got this done again is a bit strange from the Congress party's point of view. If I look at the picture from their point of view, then I'd say, how can I be saying that I have these powerful magazines who are my allies, who are amenable to my propaganda, and at the same time keep complaining that media is against me? If I look at it from the BJP's end, I mean, in the sense of my assessing the BJP's sort of talent on this, if they inserted this, then what's the point of doing it when those cover stories have already come out, right? So you are now trying retrospective motives for this. So once again, doesn't add up, sounds murky to me. Then it says toolkit, quote unquote, toolkit goes on to say, write letters to Narendra Modi. So we know Manmohan Singh wrote to him, Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, they've all been writing to him. I don't think they need to read this toolkit to be writing letters to Narendra Modi, and to also talk about the fact that a lot of the PM Cares stuff is not working, or PM Cares needs more transparency, encourage more RTIs. Now once again I will see this as legitimate opposition activity. Unfortunately, the opposition right now in India is not active enough to be asking more of these questions. So if you see all this, first of all, I don't know what is the crime on any side. Second, a lot of it is stuff that any opposition party should be doing, and if it's not doing, then it's not doing its job. Third, if that opposition party is doing all this and putting it in writing, then that opposition party is very immature and is not playing national politics, but is still playing college politics. This will not even work in JNU politics, right? They'll be caught out. And fourth, if this stuff from a political party even leaks like this, then I think that political party has to go for Chintan Baitak. That is for the Congress. For the BJP side, this is a clever attempt to divert attention, because news is bad everywhere. There's a lot of bad news on international media. There's also a lot of bad news on domestic media, because not all of domestic media is sold to the government or afraid of the government. So this is a way of deflecting attention, because news is uniformly bad on every front. So try and create a diversion. So it's a 2-day diversion or distraction. But having done that, if you take this document, first of all, 95% in this document is not objectionable. So what are you talking about? Do you think it's a crime to attack your Prime Minister? After all, a lot of people in India did not vote for your Prime Minister. We have the first past the post system. Nobody in India has got more than 50% voters voting for him or her. Her I say specifically because Indira Gandhi was among our most popular leaders of all times. So what is the big deal? What are you complaining about? And if you have taken this and you've doctored and inserted those few things in it, especially about amenable or friendly magazines and things, which actually look very crude, then that tells you that you aren't much brighter than the people in the Congress party who might have written this. So both parties come across looking like amateurs in this. Let's leave it at this. And now I know sometimes I talk about figures of our political history which might have had a bearing on where we have reached today. So one of those, Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, a former president, our 6th president, twice Speaker of Lok Sabha, cabinet minister in 2 cabinets, that is Lal Bahadur Shastri's and Indira Gandhi's. Before that, Congress president at 3 AICC sessions between 1960 and 62. The youngest president of India. At the age of 64, he became president. So Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy's anniversary falls today, and there is a lot about him. A man born in 1913 who became deputy chief minister of what used to be Andhra state in 1951. Andhra state was then just Andhra, then Telangana got added to it, so it became Andhra Pradesh. He became the first chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, was twice chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, quit the second time when Supreme Court passed some strictures or made adverse comments about his government's nationalization of private bus routes. All that is besides the point. The important thing is that he was the Speaker of Parliament between 1967 and 69 when in Congress parties, Indira Gandhi was facing opposition for the Congress party's old guard, which came to be described as syndicate. So he was seen to be close to the syndicate, and in fact he was quite a correct politician. When he became speaker, he resigned from the Congress party, saying a speaker should not belong to any party. He was an old school politician. आजकल कोई ऐसा नहीं करता है. आजकल even if you're Speaker of Parliament, you can even tweet all the time praising your Prime Minister and praising your party. These were different times. So he left the Congress. In 1969, the Congress party wanted him put up as their presidential candidate. And they got agreement from a lot of others because Sanjeeva Reddy was respected. Indira Gandhi did not accept it. So Indira Gandhi put up her own candidate, and that candidate was put up as an independent. That was V.B. Giri, Varagiri, Venkat Giri. And Mrs. Gandhi then said that people in the Congress party should be able to defy the party whip and vote according to their conscience. They don't have to follow the party's instructions. There was no anti-defection law then. So enough people defied the whip, whereby V.B. Giri got elected for the first time after the second preference votes were counted. So close was the election, and Sanjeeva Reddy, who was the official candidate of the Congress party, he got defeated. That's when the Congress split in 1969. That's the reason I say that he played a role in our politics, consequences of which we still see now, because that split in the Congress changed India's politics forever. That led to Mrs. Gandhi's left turn, that led to the emergency, that led to all of her old Congress colleagues, including Morarji Desai, Nijlingappa, etc., going to the opposition, forming the Janata Party, coming to power, defeating her in 1977 elections, coming to power. And that is when, for the first time again, after 69, after he lost the presidential elections, Sanjeeva Reddy retired from politics, went back to his village, Anandpur, a poor village in Andhra Pradesh. But then he came back to politics on the call of Jayaprakash Narayan and Sampurna Kranti, contested elections from Nandyal, from where later P.V. Narasimha Rao also contested election, won that election, became speaker again, and was then chosen again presidential candidate when President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad died in office. And that is when even the Congress decided to support this candidature. So he became the first president in India's history to win an election uncontested. And I'll tell you also a sidelight. If you read Narasimha Rao's book, The Insider, it is supposed to be a novel, but it's a fictionalized autobiography in a way. In that fictionalized autobiography, The Insider, he talks about a fictional state of Afrozabad. Afrozabad is Andhra Pradesh, right? Afrozabad, and he talks about a character called Mahendranath. That Mahendranath is Sanjeeva Reddy, Neelam Sanjeeva Reddy, and that Mahendranath in that novel of Narasimha Rao is constantly at odds with the other chief ministerial candidate or the chief minister, that is K. Brahmanand Reddy. So I just thought this was about a person who played such an important role and whose fate marked such an important juncture in India's political history that I should talk about that also. And I do that occasionally. We talked about Charan Singh some time back, Chandrasekhar, and some of the others.